Gorillas in the Mist is one of the most highly touted movies of the new fall season, but I was not impressed. Of course, I was somewhat moved by the sight of the wild apes, but I'm mesmerized watching the apes in the zoo, too. The movie is based on the true story of Dian Fossey, an anthropology student who in the mid-60s volunteered to study the great wild apes for Professor Louis Leakey. She became much more than his helper, though. She was able to get close to the apes like no scientist had ever done before. At first in Africa, with a guide, Fossey, played by Sigourney Weaver, doesn't know what to expect from the apes. Later, she gains the animal's confidence, but the film breaks down when it turns into a love story between Dian Fossey and a National Geographic photographer, Brian Brown, assigned to cover her work.
Do you think I'm weird?
Yes, I do, absolutely, without question.
I also think you are wonderful.
The film regains a little power, however, when Fossey goes after a man selling wild apes to zoos.
If I ever see you or your meat wagon again, you'll be lucky if you don't end up in a wooden box.
That's okay, but then more melodrama with a photographer who decides to leave for another assignment and suggests that Dian join him.
You know, I just can't imagine not being out with them every day. Seeing their faces, hearing them, smelling them. Every time I think I know everything there is to know about a gorilla, the next day something completely new happens. I'm hooked. How can I give that up?
Of course, the big deal in the film is that there are a number of scenes with Sigourney Weaver and the beautiful apes around her. You may have read all the publicity about how dangerous it was for her to get close to them. But that matters really not a whit while we watch the movie. The plain fact is the film hedges its bets with that cornball love story, or at least a standard love story, and the ape footage is really less than I expected it to be. The majesty of nature is not there, at least it's not there as much as I thought it would be, and Dian Fossey's achievement, consequently, seems less than I suspect it really was.
Well, Gene, I was also disappointed in the film, but I would recommend it because I do feel that what is there is interesting to watch, especially the ape footage. And by the way, they weren't all apes. Some of the apes, or parts of apes, were actually special effects by Rick Baker. And they were so effective that you couldn't tell what was real and what wasn't.
Of course, if you know that, the problem is you're trying to look around and figure out which one is real.
It didn't bother me. What did bother me was the fact that the Dian Fossey story, of course, is a tragic one. She gradually becomes more and more cranky until finally she's obsessed and even insane, and then somebody murders her and we don't know who that is. And that development of her personality seemed to me to be very abrupt. We have a scene where she's a little crazy.
And why?
Then a scene where she's crazier, and then a scene where she's really nuts. And if it's going to be a psychological study of Dian Fossey, then let's deal with that. If it's not, then let's make it into a natural story, a natural history story.
And let's leave out the love story. I tell you, if they remove that photographer, the movie loses nothing, and you have all that extra time to do the things that you want, to make it more psychological on her and to have her spend more time with the apes. I can't recommend the movie. I laughed at some of the dialogue. I thought it was very arch in the beginning of the film.
I felt that in a way it would have been better if it had been an old-fashioned movie with an upbeat ending, because the ending is downbeat, and so is the love story downbeat. Nevertheless,
reconsider your vote, please.
I won't reconsider my vote. Nevertheless, I felt it just on the bottom line it was worth recommending.
Oh, that's because you're just saying apes and a woman are there and they look pretty. That's what you're saying.
I think I would have found a more elegant way to phrase it, but nevertheless.